Okay, thanks a lot, guys, for another episode of the MI podcast. I covered two, three when I started my guest podcast. I had done a lot of explainer videos before that, but now I've got a good line of guests coming from different backgrounds, and we'll have an interesting conversation. So today's topic we'll keep it around collaboration because I feel marketing cannot be done in isolation. There are so many internal, external stakeholders who you have to work very well with so that your marketing is optimized. So to discuss that today, thanks Ishwari for joining me for this.
Thank you so much, Nikhil, for having me.
Great, great. So, firstly, we'll try to cover the first thing of in collaboration is the internal stakeholder. We are with many teams. We are working with. You're working with sales team, creative team, customer support. So you can like maybe take us over that. What a marketer has to keep in mind. We'll not talk about other departments because that's a different thing that maybe a CEO has to it. But if you
Right.
ask, there's a CMO what you have to keep in mind for the processes of your marketing department so that they work properly with all the other departments.
Understood. So, in my opinion, marketing teams like marketing, sales, any outbound team has to work very closely with teams that work directly on the product. So, number one, the marketing team and the sales team work very closely with each other in the sense that the sales team talks to customers directly, so it can provide inputs to the marketing team in terms of how they can better strategize. What is it exactly that the customer wants? Also, if I had to talk about a team like, say, customer service, they also get to talk to the customers directly so they can identify the pain points of the customers, any common questions that they may have, and your marketing efforts can make the campaign more targeted to appeal to these customers because you can directly get inside the customer's head to understand what is it that they want to know more about the product. So this is how these teams can work together. Apart from that, I think the product team is also a very important team that works with marketing. Marketing also, the kind of data that the marketing team gets, the kind of response to the campaigns that can help the product team a lot to better the product and to understand what the user wants more.
That's right. I think we'll take one by one the departments which kind of are interlinked with marketing.
All right.
So, firstly, in sales, what do you feel they should do in terms of obviously they will have meetings discussing from the grassroots level
Right.
what the most common thing I think you also in college would have covered where you are interviewing the customers there or
Right.
they could be like prospective customers and you're seeing noting down what are the likes dislikes what are the expectations maybe something about the competitors also or what they like about your product or something similar is like satisfying a certain need of theirs which is in the
Makes
same
sense,
thing
yeah.
so in that little bit you can share then we'll maybe discuss more on that.
Got it. So let's elaborate on the efforts of the sales team. Personally, I've had some experience in partnerships, which is always used in very synonymous to sales. Because again, like partnerships is an outbound. Pretty much the job description it's very similar to like what a salesperson would do. And sales, what I've learned from my experience, is not a step-by-step process, but rather it's a funnel. So you
Hmm.
start on one end, and then if you keep if you keep checking those steps, you end on the other side of the funnel, and the funnel kind of narrows down. So we start with a wide variety of leads. Then you send your first message to them, you let them know that this is our product and stuff. Then your funnel gets shorter in the sense that you'll find customers who are interested, who will write back to you. You'll come up with follow-ups and stuff like that.
That's
And
it.
then you'll maybe like showcase a demo. You'll start like hardcore marketing your product. You'll start making a few changes to your product to appeal to these customers more. And then finally, there's documentation, and then you close the sale. So it's a wide phased funnel that narrows down.
That's right.
So,
In apps, a very like known example, a popular example of this is what happened with Maggie. So their particular, they had done some kind of a upgrade or change in their flavor. This was like long back, like maybe 15 years back or something. And actually on ground, like people were really not liking it, and they was telling that to the shopkeeper. So I think obviously when they had that kind of an interaction, the guys who are actually selling it to the shops, the whatever the distribution guys, those are sales guys only, like they have to. So they gave those inputs to them that the earlier flavor, obviously they were like, and there were certain things that that flavors, it was not going with them because Maggie was trying to kind of ape certain other competitors in that.
Got it.
So that I think kind of feedback was it saved them a lot of like a drop in sales because when it was just being discussed, it was not that much in the mainstream, and they came up with an ad then that Abhi Purani Wali Maggie or something like that. So
Right.
that's something I think. What do you feel on that? Like something like that coming from the sales because they also kind of keen. This may be a part of the process getting these minor inputs from the retailers.
Definitely, definitely. And I feel like both the teams can provide valuable inputs to each other and
Hmm.
help effectively like strategize it. Like the marketing team can provide inputs to the sales team to help them with like better lead generation and to understand what their target audience is better. At the same
Hmm.
time, the sales team can support the marketing teams in terms of what is it that the user really wants,
Hmm.
understanding the pain points of the users and specifically then catering their campaigns or their efforts towards those pain points so that the customer feels good.
That's right. Next, we'll take the design team. Those who are designing like your graphics, it could even be UI UX. So, how can they kind of coordinate better with the marketing team?
So, design is a very interesting concept. What I've understood is that various brands have various brand image. At the same time, design is it's such a peculiar department. Like if you were to talk about certain brands, like every brand has a defining font, a defining color,
Hmm.
and there's also some articles I've read about how different colors can symbolize different meanings. Like the
Hmm.
color purple is associated with royalty. The color
Hmm.
blue is associated with like more. I would say a more comfortable, a more trusting
Red
brand.
is like hunger or something. I don't know.
Yeah, so there are like these different brand colors that the design team can make use of. In fact, if I'm not wrong, every brand when they start off, they come up with a brand kit and like brand
Yeah.
guidelines where they discuss, what kind of font do we want, what kind of colors do we want, what kind of brand image are we going to portray.
Hmm.
So for campaigns and specifically for marketing efforts, the design team is very, I would say, works very closely with the marketing team
That's
in
right.
that sense.
They can give those inputs. Like, say, a marketing guy would not, maybe in the colors aspect of it, we don't know it inside of. There's so many
Right.
things. I mean, for colors, there are shades also, and maybe that's signifying something. That guy with an
Definitely, yeah.
aesthetic sense, he can give those inputs because, as we had discussed also in that earlier episode where we are talking about AI, is everybody now should be more. In terms of in tune with the final result.
Right.
So when you know like what is your design going to be used at, so that people click that ad more. So if this has kind of a direct correlation, or you are seeing something which can be corrected,
Got it.
you should kind of this thing, you should not get caught in that hierarchy thing. Just give that those inputs that they can work closely with the marketing guys.
Right. I think the marketing team can help in terms of like the vision and the prompts, and the design team helps with the execution. So that's how
That's right.
overall it
In
works.
a UI UX sense, what do you think? Like in the apps and all.
For apps, of course, the marketing team can help a little bit, but here I think there has to be a little support provided by the product team
Hmm.
because designing campaigns is very different from designing apps or from
Yeah,
designing user experience. So I
that's
think
right.
that's something that the product team works better with.
Yes, yes.
But if you were to like explore synergies and how the marketing team can help, again, I think I would say that because it's an outward facing team and
Hmm.
because they can actually evaluate, they can basis on like how many clicks they're getting on an ad, they can understand whether a certain feature or a certain even a certain screen appeals to a user or not. So they can
That's right.
provide that input, not maybe to the design team, but to the product team, and then the product team
That's
can
right.
work on.
Here, if the marketing guys are working closely and they are sharing inputs, like so, even the design guys know that there are certain kind of flow which is getting more engagement, then it's can be used because there are certain like when that simplistic wave came, like even Google had changed the logo on the
Right,
major
yeah.
brands. I think every one of the major brands, they did that because kind of that was something was appealing. It got a good response from one major brand, and all the other brands kind of followed suit. That is where marketing has an impact. It would have been discussed with the design team and then create that, because sometimes in design also you can make it a bit more complicated, adding too many things in it.
Makes sense. Yeah, I think so. To like ensure that seamless process, not only like the literal design elements, but also the complete roadmap of how the product or the service or the app is being used. That's where like a collaborative input of the marketing, the product, and the design team can be put together. Design also is such a wide field, right? You have
Yeah.
creative designers who work on like your colors, your logo. You have product designers who work on the experience of using the product. So I think different skills
That's it.
can be leveraged to make the product more
Product,
seamless
now we'll go
altogether.
to the little bit more in the product team or something. You would have worked in something, any kind of ideas with those you are setting up. So
Right.
anything you can share with that, like how you worked with in terms of, I won't say separate marketers, but in a marketing sense and also in a product sense.
Got it. So I think one very interesting experience I had was I was working at a very early stage crypto startup, and when you're working in a startup which is so new, which is so like which is quite literally 0 to 1, one employee or one executive has to wear multiple hats. So we didn't really have distinctions of like this is my department, this is your department. It was just like everyone doing everything.
That's right.
So even though I started my journey there as in content, in growth, in like outward facing marketing, a lot of the times I had the opportunity to work closely on the product and to work with the product designers, to people who are actually with the developers who are building the app. This is what I heard from other people. So in that sense, I would say that again being very specific to the example, because I had such like close understanding of what the product was, because we had very frequent meetings with like with the developers and with the product designers to understand what the product is. So whenever I personally or for work purposes, whenever I had to like market the product to someone else, my value add in my head was, because crypto is such an it's such a I would say it has a very steep learning curve. Not everybody understands crypto, but because I had an understanding of this product, I could simplify my pitch and make people understand what exactly this app is, which is something I think that a technical person may not be able to necessarily do. Because even though they know the technicals, the person you're selling it to might not be as technical. Like if it's a crypto investment app and if I'm selling it to someone who's like 35 years old, and if I try to explain them like the algorithms or how the market moves and like this is how you use the app, these are the 10 different features, they might kind of like lose interest, or they might think that it's too overwhelming or complicated for them. But at the same time, if I in my head kind of like make that mental map of, okay, this is the audience and this is the product, how do I make the product more relatable to them? So that's the bridge that a marketer or a growth hacker can kind of make from the tech part to the customer.
That's right. Next, I think customer servicing. So what I have kind of experienced is that the general questions or the queries they get. Now we have to create like marketing collaterals as per that. So you create like a tutorial or you create some kind of a infographic or workflow. So that comes in from them, and if I mean to say, if their feedback is prompt and like as per what is, because they are interacting all the time, and what kind of complaints or anything is there. Every, I think, site now you have the chatbot, and also you get so many kind of updates in terms of the data from them. So I think that's where kind of they can share them. What's your kind of opinion on that?
Right. Customer service also, what I've learned is that it's kind of the last part of the sales funnel. So customer executive, customer people who work in like customer service, customer support, customer success are all kind of part of the sales team. And where they can add the most value is, again, they get to talk directly about the users, about what their problems are, what their pain points are, what is it that they really want, what is it that they don't understand. They can use all of that like qualitative data and provide it to the marketing team, and then the marketing team can kind of like use those pain points and make or like advertise their product around that. Like if I were to give you an example, let's talk about like the Horlicks campaign or like the Bonvita campaign or like these sort of like energy drinks that are marketed towards growth of young kids. So okay, let's take Horlicks specifically, right?
Yeah.
Horlicks, a lot of the users were the end user is the kid, but the person that you're selling it to is the parent, right? So the brand has to think about two ways. How do you make it appeal to children? So Horlicks had a very catchy tagline, right? It straight up like told people that it'll make you taller if you have it, you grow faster.
That's
So that's like sort of a selling point.
that is the pain point like they analyze, because in India it's considered in terms of your height can be as a perception with these things you can increase, and then
Right.
it for the guys especially that input is there, like, so if the taller the guy the better. So yeah, definitely they caught on to that, and then
Right, and then they kind of marketed their product in that sense. So here it's very important to understand that even though your end user is the child, your customer is the parent. So you have to reassure the parents so they buy the product for their children. So that's where your customer support teams can help you out, because they're talking to the parent here and not the child. The product team or the teams that work on making this product might have the child as the end user in their mind, but the problems of the parent can be completely different to the problem of the child. Like the child's problem would be that they don't like the flavor, they don't like how it tastes, stuff like that. But a parent can have other legitimate concerns, right? Like, does this product actually add nutrition? Does it have too much sugar? Is it healthy for my child? So the problems are very different. So the customer support team can help understand what the problem of the customer
And in this
is.
product, obviously when you have kids who are below the age of 8 or something, they are going to be the decision makers, like the
Right.
parents who they will force them to drink that also. Yeah.
Definitely. So I
That's
think
right.
that's yeah.
Now, the last would be, as a marketer, then you are collaborating also with your boss or the top management. So, how do you kind of optimize that process for yourself? Like in terms of what do you kind of any kind of tip or advice you can give in that? I'll also obviously add to that since I've worked quite a bit within
Absolutely,
that.
yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. No, I think you're way more like well suited to answer this question, because my experience has pretty much been like limited to small scale organizations
right.
and startups. So,
But like if you were marketing it, like what was, say, a weekly discussion used to be around with the guy who is maybe the founder?
right. So the founder, or of course, like even in like small scale companies or like in startups, organizations that does not have a lot of employees, the founder always is in touch with most of the departments. Like in most places I've worked, I've always had like weekly or bi-weekly one-on-ones.
Very hands-on
yeah.
founder who is into marketing and
Right.
kind of
Who's-
knows what's
who
happening.
oversees
Yeah,
all the
oversees, yeah.
departments at all times, because like he has to be in constant touch with what's going on where and how all these departments collectively can optimize and make the product better. So I think
But is it also the case in these startups which have kind of done well over a couple of year period? The founder has, in terms of marketing, has been quite he is spending quite a bit of time on that, and he is kind of optimizing compared to the other things. Do you think that is the case?
Okay, got it. So to answer that question, two most popular examples that come to my mind is one would be Twitter. Although in this case, Elon Musk is not really the founder, but he is the CEO and he is top management, the face of Twitter as of now.
No, he's
So-
taken over, so now he's
Yeah.
the owner, only you can call it. Yeah.
Right.
He's the majority.
So in this scenario, Twitter is a social media platform, right? Twitter does its marketing separately on its own as well. But because in this scenario the founder is so aggressively passionate about Twitter, and because he himself is so active, that kind of
And he has
shows-
a personal brand of his own only. He'll be the in the top, say, 50 people, most known people in the world. If you take any
Right.
movie stars and all that, so that also kind of else it. That was, I think, also one of the reasons where the founders who came from Shark Tank, they saw a kind of a more attention on their brands, and
Right.
certain, I think they were able, like sales also increased at least during the time they were in
Definitely,
the
definitely. I recall seeing a lot of social media ads where they would like post snippets of their Shark Tank experience, and the
That's it.
founders would talk more about what
Yeah,
they've done.
and they are featuring themselves in the advertising and
Right,
everything.
yeah. So that always helps. I think if the founder, makes his personal brand more in line with the company, I think this is a tip that I've got from a few growth hackers as well. That if you're a startup founder and you have a company page, it's wiser for you to promote the company from your own personal brand rather than trying to build up that company page from scratch, because that way you get more traction. Because then it's just human nature, right? If I will believe in a person, I'll be like quicker to believe in a person rather than believe in a company or to believe in an organization. So that's always advised. And I think a very popular example of where marketing literally leads the sales for like a company, or like where the marketing department absolutely stands out for me, would be Dunzo. Dunzo has amazing, like they have insane campaigns. If you see their Instagram page, it's so vibrant, and they get so much engagement through their Instagram itself, because they like wholeheartedly put like crazy amount of efforts in their marketing, and that's what has made Dunzo a household brand compared to like any other. If I were to compare any other service in the same industry,
That's right. Now, if you take startup, if once the product is set up, let's just talk about IT product you've made. How much of your time, in terms of say percentage, you think the founder should invest in marketing?
okay, in marketing, I think the founder should be an advocate for the product 100% of the time.
Yeah.
Depending on the expertise of the founder, so like the founder could be, he could specialize in anything, right? He could be a CEO, or he could be a CTO, he could be a more tech savvy person. He could be a CPO, a product officer who's focused on the product, or any like sort of a CXO. I think they should always advocate the product whenever they have the chance to.
But
Because
like
they
in a
are
day, like what would you suggest in percentage of time? Because they also have to divide the day and
right.
interact with different departments, and also how much do you think they should give to a marketing? Once the product is basic level, it's set up, then you are just having additions, which is the endless process. So what do you feel on that? Like
Got it, got it. Again, could be very subjective depending on what the
industry,
product is,
yeah,
what the industry is, and
yeah,
stuff like that. But I think rather than a day, if you look at it more like a week,
yeah,
I think there has to be a weekly catch up with marketing, at least once a week, to understand what's going on. And if you have any targeted programs or campaigns that are out that are going on for you, then maybe you can make it twice a week.
constant like an
And
analysis and maybe your discussion. I feel like many of these companies, successful ones, and where you as a marketer also feel that the CEO, he knows what he's doing. They are very actively involved. Like every day, I'm
Right.
having at least the person is giving me 30 minutes of their time. This is in a scenario obviously where you're working full time for that particular company. So that definitely is there. I think my suggestion would be that key every day take out that amount of time, have that interaction, so that you're on the right, because marketing is about the demand generation, so that has to be a continuous process in the competitive environment. I feel in terms of reporting, a marketer should have a proper dashboard, like very common way, like make a Google sheet and sub sheets.
Right.
So you divide that into, like say your SEO, your email campaigns, your social media, and all this thing, and divide them into particular tasks, and then showcase that. I use a tool like say Todoist, so where you can divide like a project into sections,
Got it.
tasks, subtasks, and all, and do that, because that's required, because the amount of tasks are just increasing every day.
Fair,
Like
fair.
if you want to optimize your process, and every day, if, as a marketer, you feel you are improving or doing justice to wherever you're working, so kind of divide that and then show, like over a period of a week. It's not about the result, like how many leads or sales came, that is kind of a byproduct, but like at least those efforts or those tasks have been done, that should be reported, so then
Definitely.
you are in the good space with the top management.
Makes sense, definitely. And especially now that we're talking about documentation, it's very important in the sense that,
Reporting and all, yeah.
right, it's very important to put these things on paper so that whenever, let's say, there's like, a new joinee coming in, or if you're expanding your team, or if there's someone from the other team who's working with you, they don't have to start from scratch every single time, or like
Yeah.
you don't have to spend valuable time in trying to make them understand what the campaign is. Documentation should be in such a way so that
That's right.
they just read it
That
and
should
they
come from the
understand.
CEO because
Yeah.
they will obviously, maybe the marketer might not take much interest in those kind of things, but from the CEOs, if they had that process in place, then, and a lot of people, you're using MarTech platforms and tools and
Right.
CRM, which is integrated with your marketing campaign. So yeah, that can kind of work out well. Okay, so let's talk about the external stakeholders. In
Okay.
marketing, there are a lot of external stakeholders. You'll have digital marketing agencies, you'll have your influencer campaigns, then even PR is there. You have to be in touch with like journalists for that. So in that, you can like kind of share that how they should go about the process with the external stakeholder.
Got it. So again, we'll start one by one. We'll start with like digital marketers or like an agency per
Agency,
se.
yeah.
So these individuals, or rather like these agencies, have tremendous amount of knowledge because they have worked with other clients that are similar to you in the same space. So
Yes,
it's kind of like a repeat cohort process for them.
yeah,
So their insights come from very, very hands-on work. They have done something similar and they can tell you what has actually worked for someone and what hasn't. So in that sense, I think they can provide a lot of value. Digital agencies can, like digital marketing agencies can support you in terms of tasks that are not really, are not very dynamic. Like SEO, SEO is extremely tedious. So they can
Yeah.
just help. They can give you support who can like help you with stuff like that. If there's analysis that needs to be done on a post analysis on your campaigns, if you need to see whether your campaign worked or not, they can help you define those objectives, they can help you define your CTA, and towards the end they can give you those numbers and they can kind of simplify the result for you and explain it to the marketing team that this was your campaign, and if your target goal for the campaign was getting maximum number of clicks, so these are your number of clicks. They can also provide you solutions on how you can improve. So it's they can give you a very detailed breakdown, and
That's right.
they can structure the process a lot for you. Is what my opinion
And
is.
yeah, they like you're specializing in that. So if you're doing your SEO, you've done it for multiple people within that industry,
Right.
and also the technical aspects. Your person is doing it on a day in day out basis. That is what
Definitely, they
comes
can do
out.
it much faster than
Yeah.
someone who's like who has to learn on the job, like then develop that skill and then
That's right. That's
take those risks and kind of it. The time factor is extremely important.
Yeah.
So
Like for example, even earlier when you're not in the digital age, so you had ad agencies. Now, why the biggest of companies used to go to these agencies? They can hire also talent on their own in-house and all do it, but it is though because those highly creative guys are going in those agencies only.
right.
So when you have these new campaigns and you see, you remember some campaign in the 90s, some jingle and all, those are those creative minds who join those agencies, and that is, I mean, it works out because then it's a project to project basis job. You're creating a campaign. Maybe it's not affordable. You have those guys full time as well. So
Right.
those kind of things. Even I would say there's a little bit of a shift where like let's say the last 6 years, every major brand is having their own like a production team.
Right.
You're having all kinds of videos being made, tutorials. EdTech mein to like they'll have like a 24/7 channel only of yours, and you'll have like many like stars who are like teachers in there. So and that's in so many things, like you're creating interesting content for your TG and all kinds of content, long format, short format, we'll have podcast, we'll have small reels going and all.
Definitely.
So that shift also we are saying where in-house only these things are made. Earlier it was kind of you volume was not much, so then you used to give it to a particular agency, but now if it's affordable they can do that. What do you feel on that even that kind of a shift has happened?
I would say definitely because marketing has become a must-have now. It's not a luxury anymore. It's something that every brand aggressively needs to push for.
Yes, yeah.
And
This I can
marketing,
just one obviously thing which everyone has noticed with the digital age. Earlier, the marketing positions were only not much. Like you used to see
right?
a company, say has 500 employees, you'll have maybe two marketing people. Now, from even the smallest company on day one, you have to have, if not like in-house, but an agency who is a kind of multiple people who are working on that. So that is a good change where it's seen a lot of employment also.
Definitely, definitely. I totally agree with that. And also, I believe that to set up a marketing team for your own company is probably one of the hardest things to do because
Hmm.
companies initially they give preference to building the product. So you'll see that they're always they never have a lot of issue with like hiring talent for like development of the product, and
Hmm.
like they don't have a lot of issues with the product team,
Hmm.
with the finance team, more like teams that directly get to work on the product.
Hmm.
But when it comes to more creative things like marketing and advertising,
Hmm.
it's really not a one person job. So if you had to set up a marketing team, it would include one who's coming up with the ideas. There
Hmm.
has to be one who's like keeping track of all the expenses, who's budgeting and
Hmm.
coming up with a logical CAC. Then you'll have a designer
Analytics guy
who's
also, like all the
definitely,
data
yeah.
is being analyzed and all. Social media, maybe like what will click with an audience, and also so many kind of people. Like you can have a separate position with a particular skill set. You can say, yeah.
Definitely. I honestly think that a couple of years down the line, marketing won't just become an industry, but an absolutely must-have skill.
Hmm.
Every individual on like a personal and professional level will have to learn the know-hows of marketing.
That's right. That's what we are seeing. These self-employed professionals, you have to have your own like channel,
Right.
because like why doctor, lawyer, and these guys are having the channels. Even you can see in USA like mechanics and all. Also, they are explaining something, and so they have to know and indirectly a marketing only of say growing that
Right.
your online presence, because that then channelizes to attention to you, which you monetize, right? And there is a perception building that if someone has created so many great explainer videos and they've got good amount of attention online, then he must be good in his this thing.
Definitely, yeah. The
Yeah.
personal brand is a very like building your own personal brand is a very good practice to have. That's why
Hmm.
you've seen so many celebrities and all who actually end up writing books towards the end because they know that they have a massive following
Yes,
and
yes.
they
So that
can,
interest will always
yeah.
be there. Yeah. That's right. Other people like say influencers and all, like how do you create a system where you're optimizing resources of these influencers, all different category of micro, macro, even celebrity level influencers.
Right. So, influencer management in general, I feel is going to be a new market. I'm very excited to see what product people come up with to optimize influencer management because as of now, the only place to find influencers is probably like social apps, Instagram, YouTube. If you're a if you're a gaming startup, then maybe
Hmm.
streaming platforms like Twitch and stuff like that. But I've not seen a product that caters to I've not seen a product that like lists down influencers and talks about what their background is, how they can help your brand and stuff like that. So I think that's a huge gap in the market, and I'm very excited to see what products people can build around that.
That's right.
And how a brand can collaborate with influencers is, of course, like you
Little
align
bit
your
different, like in terms of we'll talk about more in collaboration, identifying the right guys, because it's just beyond the numbers. When
right.
you interact with the person, he'll be the right person for your brand, and then setting up a work process so that it is kind of that association is then turns up into monetization. So you are using like that trust, that loyalty of his particular audience, and the channel translates into sales for your product.
Definitely. And another thing worth noting is with influencers, as per my knowledge, I've never really seen any contracts, binding agreements.
Hmm.
So establishing that trust and goodwill factor is so important because let's take an example. Let's say there's a beauty and fitness blogger,
Hmm.
and you're a brand who maybe sells like protein shake, and you ask an influencer to advocate that for you. They'll do that. But what if the next day they also advocate the same for your competitor? Then how do you
Hmm.
establish that kind of trust? So I think that's something off paper that brands need to
Yeah.
figure out to establish with influencers. Some
I think
deals,
we've gone beyond that because if you see now in that space, like your competitor is also hiring the same influencer, even the
right?
brand ambassador, which is a celebrity, is going to a certain event which will be sponsored by that. So it's kind of getting in a space where you don't even have an ambassador. It's like just on a project, like he's promoting this particular thing
Right.
because it's becoming hard to kind of plus, people, I'm not sure they are even caring on that. Okay, if there is a particular, my celebrity, this thing is uh, obviously direct competitor would not work, but even indirectly is promoting. Like, so
Right.
a particular movie star is promoting a particular soft drink and also uh, like an aerated drink and then a juice. So it's in
Right.
a maybe a similar space, but it's being kind of done and it's kind of that is what is happening. It's a little bit getting difficult to monitor that particular thing.
I get it, yeah. So I think because influencer marketing is so new, I think it has only boomed after COVID.
Yeah.
The whole digital era, in fact, came into being. Influencer as a full-time job is something that COVID has facilitated because,
Yeah.
when people were just stuck in their homes and literally the only access they had to the world was digitally. So I think that industry is very new, and all of us are just like figuring it out. So I think these are very interesting pain points that, again, like I said, there's a lot of room for people to make products that take care of all of these pain points. So it'll be
That's
exciting
right.
to see what people make.
Yeah, the basics, like as marketers, what we follow is obviously the traffic that you get. So when you do a campaign, what is the traffic you're getting from particular influencers channel to your site? That obviously you should properly track. And then obviously the promo code thing is a direct correlation, which
Right.
is kind of in the beauty space is expected that a particular influencer will get you the sale. And that's a good thing in say the micro level influencers is they will get you the direct sales compared to which we are seeing to the celebrity.
Right.
Maybe you get a more reach there, but then is that reach really valuable in terms of does it convert? That is also a question
Right.
to ask.
What is the return on investment is a very important question to
That's
ask.
right.
So, and it's celebrity influencers are like crazy expensive. So, at the end of the day, you need to figure out how many of like what percentage of their audience has actually turned into a customer. Number one. Number two, how many of those customers will buy your product again? So, these are the metrics that brands need to identify and
Yeah,
align.
you track that from this particular influencer, this customer has come, and then obviously you can do an analysis that what is maybe a lifetime value over a period of a year,
Right.
what are you getting from that particular.
Definitely.
You can get deeper into it. Then it's just not that one sale, but that particular customer who's then purchased that one product, which obviously on e-commerce you can track those things, and then like over a period of year how much you are getting from that particular customer.
Right, definitely.
That's right. Other stakeholders, like say you have your PR activities. So in that we'll maybe discuss a bit in terms of you being written about online and events as well.
Got it. Okay. So let's talk about content that's written online, PR in terms of like publications, magazines.
Advertorial, you'll have
Yeah.
guest blog, those kind of things.
Right. So, in my experience, what I've noticed is that PR efforts are kind of short-handed. People don't use it unless it's absolutely necessary. PR is only used it's not used as a frequent marketing
Yeah.
effort. Rather, people only use PR when they have big announcements, product launch. They'll
Yeah.
do like they'll opt for some sort of media publication to talk about it, or if a startup has like fund raised and stuff like that, then they'll resort to those things. But on like a day-to-day basis, it's something that doesn't really happen because again, PR agencies are super expensive. And if I had to talk about like public relations in general, what the brand can do for itself is have its employees kind of stay in touch and basically like work on the PR kind of like themselves. Again, the personal brand building kind of comes into play here. I've seen
That's why you get like newsworthy, maybe yourself, like where
right,
it's not paid. It's something which is quite interesting. With these guys will pick up
right,
because it's
definitely.
competitive among them also. No? There's an interesting some campaign that is there that create like a lot of these. Virgin company had created a lot of campaigns which were so out there that became like mainstream news. Like the one, I think, the guy with the jetpack who had gone, it was like there's a flying man spotted,
Right,
and
yeah.
also those kind of things. Yeah, so it's kind of interesting where somewhere or the other. But I know the big companies, they even have these parties, events where they will call the journalists and all, and
Definitely, yeah.
that creates that because obviously the top journalists, the trusted ones, they have a huge influence. There's no doubt about it.
They do, definitely, and they also resort to like more traditional publication, like newspapers. They have the budget to have the newspaper cover their whole front page with their product. So they kind of have the finances to make that happen. So I've only seen big organizations resort to like this
That's
sort
right.
of PR, but on a
On
smaller
a,
scale,
yeah, on a
it's
smaller scale, I think it correlate to your TG, which particular sites are there, which are getting traction. Like for example, like say have a marketing software, and I will go to AFAX.
right.
AFAX because you all marketing professionals go there. So somewhere or there, if I'm written about there, I know I'm going to get that my core audience there, and they have all their attention. So that is also where they are different. Like your story is for entrepreneurs, so any kind
Right.
of SaaS product and all will get a lot of traction there in terms
Makes
of
sense,
ads and
yeah,
all.
yeah.
Yeah,
Even like online digital publications these days kind of have like they I don't know if specialization is the right word to use, but there's a certain kind of content that they cover,
that's
and
right.
it's very important to identify if that sort of like PR body fits in with your product and your requirement.
That's right. Okay, so let's talk about collaboration with other working professionals in your space, especially obviously for marketers that we are talking about. So, what do you feel as a working professional? It can be 10, like obviously when you're doing a full time job, a little bit you feel a bit of isolation where you are not interacting. And marketing, what happens that like compared to IT field developers, like in an IT company, there'll be a lot of developers, so you have a lot
Right.
of people around you. But in marketing, you might be the only one marketer in your. So how do you like interact with other marketers, reach out in today's digital age? How you can leverage that? Then just have empty social media connections.
Got it. I think, in my opinion, the best way to do that is to participate in networking events. It's very important to be aware of what are the different events going on in your city, and there's a lot of like pages on Twitter, Instagram that post meetups. They they keep you updated about what's going on in your city, and in person is I feel like it's the best interaction to have rather than cold reaching out on social media and all. Of course, that also works in case of a time crunch where you really just need help and you
Yeah.
need to immediately get in touch with someone. Social
It
media is a
is
good
with social. I feel now you have to like that is not happening in my this thing where there are people from the normal this thing when you're reaching it is through social media because
right.
somewhere or the other there's more trust like through a LinkedIn profile or something. Somebody reaches out, you have the things in front of you. So it is with social media you kind of can pinpoint and then say a lot of things you can like with your hashtags and filtering, you can get to the people you want. Basically, you can find your tribe.
Right. Of course, of course. That's always there. I think social media has absolutely aced that. Even LinkedIn, for that matter, has so many different filters, and you can easily find out whoever you're looking for. But if you want to build long-standing connections, it's very important to stay in touch and to stay closely connected with these individuals. So, what I personally prefer doing is I like to go to events where they kind of have something to offer after the event is done, not just
Hmm.
like okay, so this is the event and that's it.
That's
So
right.
what
Which is
most
that is being done a lot. Like
right,
you're not
yeah,
worrying what's after that. How do you kind of and actually in marketing when you're organizing an event, you should focus on the whole experience. Like how are the other guys interacting? Because it's not you're
right,
doing a broadcasting. You call one star and
makes
it's
sense,
some
definitely.
concert and you're gonna go and this thing. It's how they are interacting that creates the experience.
Got it. And specifically, I feel like this comes from my Web3 experience. The Web3 industry is very, very big on community. So a lot of Web3 meetups, events, that I've been to, what I've noticed is that post event, what they do is they make a small gated community where people always have the option to interact amongst themselves. So if I go to, let's say, a closed door meetup where there were 30 people, they'll immediately make like a WhatsApp or a Telegram group after the event, and they'll be like, okay, here you can stay in touch, and also we'll keep more updates, and they keep growing that community. So that builds your trust, and the next time when I have to look for someone who's interested in the same space, or if I need advice, help, feedback, I'm just going to open that group and find someone who who maybe I've talked to before, or at least I'll know that my connection point is I met them at this event, I talked to them at this event. So that's a very good practice to have.
That's right. That's a major icebreaker, because nowadays when you approach people also, the problem is that sometimes there's no commonality there established. Here when you have that event, then that is already established, and then if you design that into, like, run that into a group or somewhere where there is also after the event, maybe there's some online get together or something like that, that can kind of, you can leverage that, which is also, I think, for marketers, they can pay attention is how do you, that is some pointers into your community marketing activities. How do you, like, kind of create a bunch of people who become brand advocates is when you make them interact with it, because the biggest joy for human beings is when socially there is an acceptance and involvement with multiple people. So yeah, that can be kind of the case. So let's talk about a little bit in terms of when you are collaborating with other content. So you're a content creator yourself, and you have to look at how you collaborate. So you maybe have not reached that stage where you have a lot of followers, like in the thousands and all, and then it maybe becomes kind of a little bit easier because there are very few people at the top, So then among yourself, you can look at collaborating in the same like space, like say health, fitness, motivation, or something. So, what would your some tips or advice and be in choosing for collaboration?
So for collaboration, it's very important, one, to define the objective of the collaboration. It's very important to answer the question, why are you looking to collaborate, before you get into the what's and the hows. So it's like the golden circle rule, right? First you figure out the why, then you figure out the how, and then you figure out the what. So I feel like number one is, of course, you define the objective. Second, you find someone who has the same vision, the same kind of audience that you're going for, and then you just reach out to them, and some contacts stick, some don't. From like my professional experience, I've learned that it's very important to follow up. Most of the times people don't respond to first messages, so that's the kind of like process of outreaching and finding the influencer or the content creator. Once you have found them, you can just sit down and define the format of collaboration. What exactly is it that you want them to do for you? How can you create value, and how can you capture value from them? So then you get into how you're going to collaborate, and then the final step is what are your expectations? How do you align your expectations? Your expectations could be in terms of numbers, like you can say that this is the campaign and we want at least 10,000 users to sign up. These are my expectations. And then in terms of the more like technical, the financial aspects, where which is usually how like influencer marketing happens, right? You give them a certain percentage of the sale for every sale that they bring in. So whenever I see these links where influencers have their name on it and all, or they're like, just use my name, you can use my coupon code and you'll get like XYZ discount. That's how the brand also keeps track of how many leads is this influencer actually getting in. So I think that's the whole process of finding and collaborating with an influencer. But a very important step that people miss out is post campaign. How do you stay in touch with this influencer? Because most campaigns happen in repeat cohorts. An experience that I've had in my previous internship was there was a company, a portfolio company for. I was working at a venture fund, and they had a portfolio company that kind of managed K-pop groups, and this was the second time we were doing a campaign for them where they were looking for a K-pop star in India. They wanted to find a Northeast Indian that they could take to Korea and like train them and stuff like that. So because the brand was so diligent on making the right kind of connections the first time they did the campaign, the second time it was extremely easy for me to kind of take over because I already had the list of influencers that they reached out to last time, so I knew how to align my expectations. Like I looked at their profiles, I looked at the profiles of these content creators, and I figured out, okay, this is the background, this is what they're like. So this time when I find new content creators, if I have to reach out to the old ones, I know what to expect. So in terms of repeat cohorts, it always helps if you like stay in touch with the influencer. By staying in touch doesn't necessarily mean for like work purposes. Let's say if you're having an event at your office, or if you think there's anything valuable you can share for them, just a quick message helps you kind of stay in close connect.
That's right. I would say, I mean, like when if I have to give tips, you're in the context of like both are content creators. One would be a proper like a strategy when you are promoting that collaboration, like say it's a live stream. So have a kind of a breakup of the community post or reel or the way your different social media channels they will be optimized. So have a kind of a proper strategy because I've observed with a lot of newbie influencers as well as experienced ones, they don't have any strategy for that. So follow come kind of a strategy where you optimize when you do that collaboration is live.
Right.
And a lot of influencers obviously they have their own businesses, whether it's consulting or some product and all. So how do you kind of collaborate, or the both there is a synergy where then their product also comes front and center in both cases. So if, like a fitness influencer, if he's promoting a certain health drink or something,
Right.
or it could be like a finance influencer is talking about certain software that he is created or an application for tracking your expense or something like that. So that way kind of I feel they can look at a way of designing that event where it is highlighted the topic also, and the content within it should be like addressing that TG.
Definitely,
Yeah,
yeah.
that
The
way.
target group is so important because it may so happen that, like, let's say if I have to promote a crypto product, I cannot expect a lifestyle and a beauty content creator to, market that product for me. Even if they have like, let's say if they have 500,000 followers, and on one side I have a person who has say like just 30,000, 50,000 followers.
And say he's into something like most of his followers are in the CA field, like a lot of
Right.
CAs are following him. So maybe there is more
Right.
of a
Then it makes
synergy
no
there.
exactly. It makes more sense for me to collaborate with the 50,000 because I know that these 50,000 will be quality leads and
Yeah.
they will actually
Could
lead.
be a segment of yours, right? A product may a certain
Definitely.
segment where he has more of a hold.
Right.
So that way, kind of,
Absolutely.
that's right. So, in terms of like the events, like for influencers, how do you feel like they should design it? Like in terms of like if they are having the collab and all, any kind of which I mentioned a little bit about it, like a little bit if you can say or something you've followed where you've done it in influencer, a brand also. Like we've seen the takeovers also, a certain channel, the full influencer, the same
Right.
format
They
plays
become
here.
the face of the
That's
brand.
right.
Yeah, definitely.
So in that aspect, anything you would like to share?
Um, I think again, influencer management, in my opinion, is such a new field. There's so much progress to be made there. I think we have recently started accepting the fact that being an influencer, being a content creator, can kind of be a full-time job, which initially like people looked at
And
as a
why I
side
actually
hustle.
asked this question also was because now influencer marketers also face the pressure of the results. So they
Right.
have to have that thing in place where how do you kind of optimize the your brand reach or indirectly the sale for justifying the expense on these influencers.
Right. So I think for that reason, it's very important to identify the metrics in terms of the numbers. It's very important to have a clear budget. you should at least have a rough estimation of what you want your cost of acquisition to be. Like I always believe in you should have a floor and a ceiling value. Like this is the lowest we can go and this is the highest we can go. And then in terms of the result, it shouldn't be like hard and fast. Like let's say if you were targeting 10,000, if you were targeting like 10,000 leads, and if you get 8,000, then that doesn't mean it's a failed campaign, right? So the success of the campaign should be measured in terms of a score, like on a scale of 1 to 10, how successful was this campaign? And then you keep track of this data to make sure to like make any improvements for your next campaign.
Because not only the end goal of maybe the lead or the sale we got, maybe traffic at that point of time, quality of that traffic,
Right.
like is that traffic coming back to your site after the campaign, and also a lot of
Definitely,
things
yeah.
can be analyzed, because definitely as marketers we see in terms of even our own success rate can be low in so many, but how do we kind of learn from these things, and also those things campaign that is communicated, like when I was talking about collaboration with top management, when you are tracking all these things and you are getting into details of like there are different metrics,
Right.
like which I mentioned, so these can be talked about with your management, and in terms of some way or the other, obviously the numbers or something, you're getting a positive outcome of that, and that should be kind of tracked.
Right, definitely. I think it should be tracked at all times. It helps you align your vision, it helps you align your goals and your resources for the next time you do a campaign. And of course, I think everybody like kind of learns from their mistakes. So any if even if the campaign didn't go great for you, it's you can always like write it off as an opportunity cost, as a learning cost. And but again, it only makes sense if the campaign is properly analyzed after. If it did not work out, why did it not work out, and what could we have done different is always a good exercise to do.
Yes.
So
That so going forward, obviously there's improvements and the mistakes. If there are some glaring mistakes, that those are not repeated. Awesome. So now we'll maybe cover the about marketing in a sense of mainstream co-branding efforts. You have, how do you associate with other brands? Most common, if you take even an example, maybe 30 years back would be just that Happy Meal concept where
right,
a certain brand is selling. That could be like a movie promotion thing, or it could be genuinely a toy brand which is tying up with McDonald's for selling it, because McDonald's has a huge in terms of consumers. There are so many below that, say between 5 and 12. So those kids. So like in that context, we can maybe discuss certain thing. How do you optimize that? Because that is also one important part as a marketer. How you do co-branding efforts.
right. So speaking of co-branding, it's done quite a lot these days, and the crux of like co-branding or co-promotion is that both the parties benefit from the collaboration. So
Yeah.
speaking of McDonald's,
Yeah, coming together would be like you somewhere or the other, there's a synergy. Like both are. It's like alone they are not as well. Like when they're coming together, then there is. It's an increase. Like what do you
right,
call? I'm not getting the word exactly, but
the partnership
yeah.
should be like complementary. You should
Yeah.
kind of be in the same space and appeal to a similar kind of audience. That's when
Yes.
like co-branding efforts work the best. So
That's
speaking of McDonald's only, actually the
Yeah.
most like iconic cross promotion and co-branding example that I can come up is of Coca-Cola and McDonald's. They have been going they've been going like hand in hand for years now, and it has been working great for them. Even though individually, both like McDonald's on its own and Coca-Cola on its own are titans in like the food and beverages industry, but together they have completely like opened up a new space. In the sense, I would say like Coke, Coca-Cola now has established itself as a brand that's it's like a must-have requirement whenever you're having a burger, or so that's like that's a huge
the
plus
audience,
for
like you've captured it. Coke on their own, that brand, like a lot of people would like Coke also, and you're getting that with your meal. So
right.
that is one thing, and then Coke, I mean that sale you'll get from that many orders from McDonald's, and that is a ready market for you, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And I've honestly heard some really crazy stories about the Coca-Cola that's specifically sold in McDonald's as well. I'm not sure how like true this is, but I've heard that only two people in the world know the trade secrets of how the Coca-Cola that's made at McDonald's is actually manufactured, and they're never allowed on the same flight in case of a mishap. If anything happens, they somehow like always need one person to kind of be there and pass on those trade secrets to someone, but only two people know it. So that's pretty crazy. Like
And that's the reason the Coke tastes quite really
yeah,
good in
it
that
tastes
thing
different
compared to when you get it from the bottle from the market.
Definitely, the
Yeah.
bottle version of Coke and the Coke you get at McDonald's tastes completely different. So
Yes,
that's again, we don't know if that was a tactic or if something that just like happened over time.
Yeah, they say that in terms of the process, like I think in stainless steel containers or something, it comes and the temperature that
Right.
it's served at, and that thing, those are all kind of really nailed by McDonald's when they're working with Coca-Cola. So there are some factors. So that's where like cross promotion done well when they're working together.
Right.
Basically.
Also, I can come up with a lot of other popular examples. Like if I had to talk about Nike, Nike has established itself as a sports brand. So Nike does a lot of brand deals with like athletes. A very popular example again of that would be Jordans, which were made to like
That's it.
basically admire, appreciate the legacy of Michael Jordan.
That's right.
And now it has become a brand on its own. That was the power of that deal. To cater to a completely new audience, Gen Z has become very like sneaker forward, very like so to appeal to that kind of audience, Nike collaborated with Travis Scott, the popular rapper. It has collaborated with luxury brands like Dior, Louis Vuitton, and stuff like that, which was not essentially its space before. I would say earlier Nike did a lot of collaborations with athletes, but now it has expanded. It has started cross promoting through these brands as well to appeal to a completely different kind of audience.
That's an interesting point, which come to now these major apparel brands, they are tying up with a celebrity, and there's a line of clothing or shoes and
Right,
all.
there's a limited
becoming very
edition,
common
right.
now that this is happening. What do you feel is the reason for that?
I think a very simplistic reason could be they kind of launch these limited edition product to tip off the demand supply imbalance. The second you promote, the second you brand or market something as limited edition, it immediately creates that FOMO that I need to have this. And I feel like in terms of cost, it doesn't really, in terms of like production, manufacturing, and stuff like that, it doesn't really it doesn't really disrupt their original process as much, because they know in their head, they know that if they know that we're only going to make hundreds of these, that's pretty much it. Like they just come up with a plan of how they're going to make these 100.
Yeah, and you can sell those at a premium.
Yeah, and you sell those at a premium because again, like it's a simple demand and supply rule. So there's
That's
that. Also, celebrities these days, they kind of want to position themselves as fashionable as they can, and Nike, brands like Nike and all are very prestigious brands to collaborate with. They have established trust of like customers since years and years. So it's a
cross
win-win for
promotion
both,
now
yeah.
is being translated into the celebrity being a part of like getting a stake also.
Right.
Because it might start off like he's the most aligned you can see, like they are the ones, like if it's a fitness brand, they'll take a very fit movie star and all, and then it could be that that person only gets a stake. That is also happening. Like a lot of the celebrities are then taking a stake in those particular companies, which is then it's like a promotion only, because anything the celebrity talks about or something, since you will do it more passionately because you have a stake in the company.
Right, definitely.
Yeah.
At the same time, like, so that's about Nike. If I pick up another company in kind of the same industry, let's talk about Crocs. The brand image of Crocs is completely different. Crocs is more fashionable, more like, streetwear, comfortable, laid back, quirky. That's the kind of brand image Crocs, in my opinion, portrays. So their co-branding efforts have been with companies like Disney. Very interesting, right? Or I remember they collaborated with this company that makes shoe charms. So you can actually have these detachable like add-ons on your Crocs, which is again a completely new market. You can
That's right.
customize your shoes now whenever and however you feel like. So I think it's very interesting. You can. So I think the takeaway here is that not only can you appeal to kind of the same user base, but if it goes well, it can go well to the extent where you can actually create a completely new market for this collaborated deal.
Okay, so Ishwari, it's quite interesting. Like you just, I think, passed out now from IIT Kharagpur, and IIT obviously is one of the courses like everybody wants to get into an IIT, and the entrance it's called JEE, right?
Right.
So, firstly, you can just share a little bit about your preparation process for that, and how did you crack an IIT?
Got it. So, from a very young age, I was very interested in competitive exams. I've given loads of competitive exams when I was in school, as early as fifth grade to 10th grade. A lot of like national level Olympiads or any other competitive exams, really. So I always knew that I'm more inclined towards a field of education somewhere in that direction.
Mm.
I feel like at such a young age, nobody really knows what they want to do.
Mm.
But
Like you were interested more in what specifically than that you wanted to get into, give the
uh,
IIT exam?
I was very interested in like mathematics, I would say, at
Mathematics,
that
okay.
age. So most of the competitive exams I gave kind of revolved around maths. And also because of like a little bit of like my dad's background, my dad
Mm.
gave the civil services exam. So he was also,
Mm.
he,
And was it like you
yeah.
were also a topper in your this school and college also, that also led to you, okay, I can maybe crack this?
Of course, I mean, like at a school level, I feel like every IITian has been a topper at their
That's right.
respective schools. So I think
They have that potential, obviously, then
right.
it converts into cracking that exam, yeah.
Definitely, yeah. So I think that was that was kind of always there, but that was on a much like smaller scale.
Mm.
I think towards the end of like ninth grade, I decided that I learned a little bit about like what JEE is and what IITs are, and I decided, okay, this looks like a very viable career option for me.
Mm.
And I started reading up a little bit more about how I can kind of get into it, what I can do to crack the exam. I opted for like a standard 2 year coaching at Pace, which is a very like popular coaching institute in the city. And yeah, it I think my preparation just included very like diligent, disciplined schedule.
Mm.
The coaching, of course, took care of most of like the structure of how you prepare for it, but it definitely included a lot of
Like,
self study.
like, did you do like a coaching institute and?
I was in a coaching institute, yes,
Okay.
and I did my college. So from 11th and 12th grade,
Mm.
junior college was kind of integrated, so I didn't have to worry about attending college and stuff like that. I could completely
Mm.
like dedicate my time towards preparation.
Mm. You got
Uh,
it immediately. You didn't have to take any break in between,
yeah,
right?
yeah, I didn't have
Mm.
to take a break.
So straight after 12, then you okay.
Right. So straight after 12th, there was like we had like a 1 month break where
Mm.
they counsel you where you can decide
Mm.
based on your rank what IIT do you want to get into, what department
Mm.
will you get. So there's a standard like counseling process, and once that happened, like I was admitted into IIT Kharagpur. I've done my specialization in mining engineering, and
Mm.
right now I've graduated with a B.Tech degree. So
That's right. We'll take it that when you cracked and then you went Kharagpur, when you reached first time, like what was the first day like there in that particular? It is in West Bengal, right?
right. The
Yeah.
first day was very interesting because I heard a lot of stories about IIT Kharagpur, and a lot of teachers who like taught at my coaching institute were alumni of KGP.
Mhm.
So somewhere in my head, I was most inclined towards that campus. So I was of course like extremely happy to like get in, and we had a whole like orientation program planned out for us. So the very first day, I think we were addressed by the director, and he said something that I think I'll always kind of carry with me, and that was like I think the first step towards a changed mindset.
Mhm.
He told us that when you come to this institute,
Mhm.
it will never allow you to sit on your laurels.
Mhm.
You constantly have to keep working and you have to keep working hard for everything that you want to achieve. So he
Mhm.
said, it's like, this is the first and the last time I'm going to say to you, like, congratulations. It's a big deal that you cleared JEE and then, like, you got into this institute.
Out of a lakh people, maybe you are the
Yeah.
1% that
The
got
1% who cleared the exam and who got
Yeah.
in. But that's not going to be enough to take you through your next 4 years. You have to keep working
Yeah.
on yourself and you have to keep achieving more and more and more to kind of constantly keep growing. So I think that was what my first day was like. Like I
That's
think
right.
my very first and the most important lesson I learned on my very first day.
That's right. We can then go into the like how it built a work ethic. Like an
Right.
IIT definitely develops that. That's why we see these successful alumni from it. So what is the work ethic that build through IIT?
So the work ethic is very interesting in the sense that in terms of like education, I don't think there's much of a difference that like an IIT offers as compared to other colleges.
Mhm.
I think the level of education is pretty much the same,
Mhm.
but the kind of environment that you're put in,
Mhm.
the kind of peers that you have around you, that
Mhm.
is what builds you as a professional, is what I
Mhm.
would say. The peer culture specifically in my college was extremely strong because IIT Kharagpur as a campus is very isolated. It's in the middle of nowhere, so there's no life outside of the campus. So whatever you have is just inside,
Yeah.
like there's like no decent places or restaurants even that you can go outside to eat. So there's like absolutely no life outside the campus. But because of that, what happens is that you form extremely like close friendships. Your friends tend to support you in a lot of things you do personally and professionally. Your professors, your faculty is kind of always there for you. They always like motivate you and encourage you to explore, to like do things that you're passionate about. So I think that is like the first. Those are like kind of the building blocks towards making that mindset. Number two would be in an IIT, everybody has been at the top of their class. So whenever you walk into the room, you're never going to be the smartest person. There's always someone who's going to be smarter than you and who will teach you, things that you've probably never even heard about. So that of course in the beginning can be a little bit overwhelming because everyone who comes to an IT kind of like thinks that I was the topper in my school or my coaching or this has been my rank.
Yeah.
But like I said, like it just doesn't allow you to sit on your laurels. That's never going to
That's
be
right.
enough. Only the person who constantly works on themselves, that'll be the only person that gets ahead. So your peers are so smart. It's literally like the 1% of the people, like you said, who have cleared the exam. You're among the smartest, so
Yeah.
you are kind of forced to keep pushing yourself, and that becomes a habit, which is a very good habit to have, right? Just
And
that.
different people will have different strengths and different kind of an intelligence also, so which you
Definitely.
can feed off each other. Yeah.
Right, and actually on that note, because it's a central, because it's like a government college, you see students from all over the country come in. So you get to understand a little bit about different people's culture, what kind of background do they come from, and the kind of hardships that they have faced. And still, if it's honestly very inspiring that if someone from a tier three city who has not had the best living conditions, if they have the motivation and the passion to clear the exam and to come to this institute and make something out of themselves, then it's a huge takeaway for everyone. So it shows you that, it shows you, it exposes you to a very, very diverse crowd, which is, I think, even in a professional setting, we see that, right? Diversity hire is the new trend, I would say, these days. So it's in quite a literal sense, it's like a miniature of the real world.
Melting pot.
Right. It prepares you for the real world in that sense because the exposure that you get in an IIT is one of its biggest, I would say, like advantages or one of its biggest selling points.
Exposure would be like you can elaborate on that, say for the industry. I mean, people like coming on campus for speaking about it external faculty, or maybe some opportunities where you internship level you are working with certain companies? What kind of exposure that you get?
Got it. So in terms of exposure, let's talk about like employment opportunities first. Most companies that come to IITs are, of course, super prestigious. I've seen companies from like very very small scale startups to multinational companies come on campus for hiring. But again, like if you look at any like half decent state college, these companies go there as well. The difference here would be that we're offered higher packages, I would say, a higher compensation than what students at other colleges would be offered. So in that sense, I think more or less there's not much of a difference in my opinion. But in terms of industry figures who are like exposed to the campus, who come in campus for talks and stuff like that, I think that's extremely noteworthy. Last year, Ashneet Grover came to our campus for a talk during our Tech Fest. So you
He's
know,
a ex-IIT.
he's from IIT Delhi, yeah.
Delhi, okay.
So it's very interesting to have figures like that, come on campus and address the students one on one. Like we've seen these personalities on TV, and to have them in campus giving us like mentorship and advice is very surreal. It's very like surreal.
Yeah.
So
And you guys have access to the alumni as well.
definitely, yeah. We have a very wide access to the alumni network as well. So I think that also is very lucrative. That's the kind of exposure that an IIT offers to you. It also has because like the peer culture is so strong. Like specifically, if I had to talk about my college, students a lot of the times also help out students in any way that they can. So to give you an example, the entrepreneurship cell of my college it has been extremely active in this space. They organize an annual event for which they have to talk to a lot of sponsors, and the kind of experience that it gives to them. They are essentially like what 18 to 21-year olds, right? And if at such a young age, if you're getting the experience where you have to talk to industry professionals, where you convince them to fund an incentive or like an initiative that you're coming up with, that's a huge deal. Like and you also get like a huge sense of accomplishment. If you're getting a very very renowned sponsor and they're willing to check out lakhs. So these are the kind of skills that you get to learn at these campuses. So I think in that sense, IITs do help you build your work ethic a lot. Also, in general, you're always subjected to such a high pressure environment. You have so much to prove in the sense that we are always given examples of ex-alumni. Like we are always given examples of Sundar Pichai and Mr. Kejriwal, or even like culturally accomplished people like Biswa. So there's a lot of they've added so much respect to the name. We always look up to these figures and kind of also want to like tread down the
That's
path
right.
that they have. So
So in the extracurricular, what all did you approach when you were in IIT basically? What all did you explore?
In terms of extracurricular, since my very first year, I used to play basketball. I used to play basketball before college as well. So I always knew that, like, once I go to college, this is something that I'm going to actively pursue. There's that. I was in the writing, I was in the literary club. I used to write a lot. I am an avid reader. I enjoy reading. So
Like
again,
writing like poetry, or what is the thing in the literary society?
yeah, definitely poetry. In fact, the literary club actually kind of shaped or like inspired me to take on professional forms of writing. Of course, it started off as creating creative writing. Most of the times, we would have like these closed door book reading sessions and all. We used to get together, discuss our views on the latest book that we have read.
Yes.
We had, we have very interesting workshops where they would teach us the different forms of writing, like how is writing a poetry different from writing a short story or from writing a novel. How do you write like song lyrics, different types of poetries and stuff. So it was very interesting. And because I enjoyed writing, I sort of made it a habit and actively started pursuing like content writing gigs. So I think I owe the literary club a lot because in a way it helped me like shape my content journey. So those I pursued that. Unfortunately, like I did not have a lot of interest in my specialization. Like
Mm.
right off the bat, I kind of knew that mining is not going to be it for me. So I started pursuing. I started doing a lot of like case competitions and case studies to understand what like real world problems look like
Mm.
and how I can like take on a more structured approach and understand from like my very first year, just trying to understand how the market works. And I think competitions are the best place to learn because it's much easier to be like more driven and more passionate there because the incentive is like you it's incentive based rather than you
Absolutely.
doing like some sort of course or something that's a little bit
Mm.
I would say not as interesting. So I think yeah, that's about it. Those
Definitely.
are
The for startup, in terms of what kind of infrastructure you have on campus, like are there kind of groups or some kind of fund or something that on the campus itself, those who are interested to kind of materialize the idea into actual like a product or a service, then can do that on campus itself.
So the startup culture is quite recently booming. There's definitely like a lot of facilities on campus available for entrepreneurs. Like I said, the entrepreneurship cell helps students a lot in terms of like sourcing, finding new investors, or
Mm.
finding working professionals who can offer mentorship and guidance. Some of the professors themselves have
Mm.
are like inclined towards entrepreneurship. We
Mm.
have entrepreneurship available as a course itself. The
That's
students
it.
like there's a proper specialization that you can accomplish like in entrepreneurship engineering.
Mm.
So there's that. Academically, there's a lot of programs to facilitate like this kind of culture. We have an innovation lab where students can actually go and build on their products, build on their ideas. Personally, the professors who directly teach you also support you in terms of like
Mm.
sorry, in terms of connections. They can they can connect you with industry professionals that they're in touch with. So I think overall the startup culture is booming, is quite recently booming in my college, I would say.
That's right. So even like say you join a company after a few years, you maybe have that idea in place. You'll have your peers and your seniors also to kind of keep ideating, maybe work on that. Maybe then you can get into the market with this thing. Generally, that has also happened with a lot
Right.
of XIT.
Right. I feel like most people don't really come up with a startup immediately after college. I've
Mm.
seen only a handful of people who like come up with a startup while they are studying.
Yeah.
Most IITians I've seen that come up with like successful startups
Mhm.
usually prefer to work for around
Yeah.
like 2 to 5 years,
That's it.
understand the
Because
industry, and then
the package they can use until that time, yeah,
yeah.
definitely. So the but opportunities within India, you're getting hired majorly, or it's abroad? How does that work out?
Most opportunities are within India, I would say, but abroad also there's a few companies based out of like Japan, the
Mhm.
US, the Middle East that also come to
So the
hire
like
on
the
campus.
packages and all that you hear these huge numbers. Is it like on in India itself also they are getting more because it's different now the cost of living there in
Makes
compared to
sense,
the USA.
yeah.
So how does actually it is Indian based companies also are hiring in that level of compensation?
The only Indian-based companies that hire at that level of compensation are HFTs, like high frequency trading firms,
Hmm.
and they of course prefer computer science at the most like electrical graduates, the
Hmm.
circuital branches. But of course, these packages are only offered to like 2 to 4 people out of the 10,000 students that are present on campus. So that's
Hmm.
probably not a good expectation to have.
Yeah, yeah.
On an average, the packages that IITs are offered are quite decent. Are again from industry standards are quite competitive, I would say.
Hmm.
But yeah, if someone is getting into an IIT with the expectation that they will get a package worth crores, that's like
Yeah.
that's a bubble.
That's yeah, that can be a misconception with just you take one case or two cases and then you kind of highlight that this is a general
Right.
that is there, because obviously the news people, they have to sell one particular, and that will get more views. Obviously, if someone
Of
has a
course,
package
absolutely.
in crores or something.
And these are not sustainable jobs. Like these are not jobs where you can stay long term. Like if a job is
Yeah.
offering you, a package of 2 crores annually, then imagine the kind of working hours they're expecting you to put in,
That's
right?
right.
So you cannot
That's
stay in that
comparative
company.
to a normal case. Someone, even if he's really good, like 20 years of work to get to like a general manager or
Right.
almost the MD level in certain even medium scale
Right.
companies. That's really true.
Definitely, yeah. These jobs are not sustainable. Like people mostly work here for around 2 years at the most to kind of
Mhm.
save up, and then they transition to something that they actually like. So these are not
That's right.
companies where you can stay for like for 5, 7, 10 years.
That's right. What do you feel in the type of companies or industries which will, obviously there'll be more startups and you are seeing more traction there for employment basically?
So I would say in terms of startups, the startup ecosystem in the country in general is booming. And again, I think we have COVID to thank for the
But because
startup.
they say in IT, it's kind of dropped. Like if you see the hiring over the last, you can say 6 months, those things have, even there have been layoffs. And also, what do you feel in general? Still, you're saying the startups, the ecosystem, like they are hiring a lot, there is no growth in that?
I think there are some startups that are definitely actively hiring.
Mhm.
So there's a very popular startup called Navi, which is founded by Sachin Bansal, who was the ex-founder of Flipkart,
Mhm.
and he's actively hiring because for them, like the market conditions are, it's not a hassle for them. They already have the funds. He already has the name. He's proven
That's
himself once.
that's really
So for companies like that, they're not like they're not really all companies who have done like a good fundraise, I would say, are in a very comfortable spot to hire as per their requirement. But of course, there are like mass layoffs happening. I think that's just because of the like market condition. I think it's safe to say that we are still kind of stuck in a recession. So I think that's a temporary. I think like this is a temporary situation, and eventually it will pass. But like having said that, I wholeheartedly believe in the startup ecosystem. I don't think that it's a bubble or something like that. It's
That's right.
yeah.
So now, lastly, like the as ex IIT, now like you pass out from there, what would you be like? Obviously, you have the smartest minds there, most work ethic. What would your advice be to work professional where you over the 2 years you have learned interacting with other people, your peers and all, and what would you give them in terms of how they should kind of their organize their work, or how do you keep kind of improving even changes happening rapidly in the market, how to stay abreast with them, how to use AI and all that, like little bit about some tips for them you can give.
Okay, so for working professionals, I mean, I don't even know if I should. I'm
It's like
honestly
what do you feel like, not obviously
yeah.
you're just starting out also yourself, but like just something like a human level only, what you say, what you've learned.
Right. On a human level, I would say personally, what I have learned from very early on is how to work and sustain in a high pressure environment
Mhm.
without burning out, which is, I feel, a very, very important skill to
Biggest
have.
skill.
Yeah, it's the biggest skill to have,
Yeah.
honestly, because we are constantly pushing ourselves
Yeah.
compared to if you see like the kind of work that we did 10 years ago versus the kind of work that we're doing now
Yeah.
in terms of like productivity we have as the human race as a whole we have like moved on, we've taken huge steps there. So
Mm.
it's very important to, and it's really sad to see that a lot of working professionals go through a lot of mental illnesses. There are so many people that are depressed these days
Mm.
or who cannot draw the balance between their personal and
You're
professional
interacting
life.
with devices all the time for everything. So
Right.
how do you strike a balance and also kind of relax your mind in between those all techniques? Like you have to be smarter managing because there were not that many distractions per se or temptations that they were earlier, that you
Right.
can maybe be, there are so many ways you can just waste your time on the net. So there are a lot of things that we in the youth also face, which we can kind of address and keep improving.
Right. I think that discipline is something that is very like subjective to people. I think it's something that like people need to start doing for themselves.
Mhm.
It's very important to kind of have some sort of like off-screen time where you completely detox, digitally detox, and do something that does not require you to like be on your phone or to be on
Yeah.
your laptop or to be in front
Which
of
you
the
can
screen.
practice regularly, then just have a month this thing.
Definitely. A lot of people like start going to gyms. A lot of people do meditation, yoga, and also these are very good practices to have. Like I would say, throughout your day, at least you should have like an hour or two where
To
you're
yourself?
away to yourself. Yeah, completely to yourself, where where you're not relying on a screen for relaxation. Is what I
Yeah.
would say.
That's right. So awesome. I think it's been a great session here with Ishwari. So, you want to say anything about you like people? Anything you're going to be in PwC? I think you are joining
Right.
there.
Yeah.
That's right. And anything about your content, your socials, if you want to share with the audience.
So I'll be joining PwC as a tech consultant soon, and super excited about that journey. Content is something that I've also been trying to explore independently on my own. So, but yeah, I'm also like starting my journey as a working professional, and super excited to like taking that next step. And of course, like on that note, Nikhil, thank you so much for having me.
Yes.
It's been a great
Thanks a
session.
lot.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Yeah.
And everybody, until the next episode, I'll see you many interesting guests coming up on the MI podcast. See you. Take care.